The sun hadn't yet risen over the Harper residence, but the house felt colder than usual. Daniel Harper's eyes snapped open at 6:42 a.m. to an eerie quiet he couldn't shake. He rubbed his face, the familiar hum of the coffee machine absent, the faint smell of toast missing from the kitchen. Something was wrong. He padded down the stairs in his slippers, heart quickening, and froze at the sight on the kitchen table. A single folded piece of paper, pale cream and neatly creased. Beside it lay his wife's wedding ring, glinting in the morning light. Daniel picked up the note, his fingers trembling slightly. "Don't look for me." That was all. No signature, no punctuation beyond the stark period. His throat tightened. Emily Harper wasn't the type to leave things unfinished. She planned meticulously, from family dinners to weekend trips. She had a predictable rhythm to her life, and this was chaos. "Emily?" His voice cracked. "Honey?" Silence. He rushed through the living room, scanning for anything out of place. Her laptop was gone. Her phone wasn't on the charger. The front door was locked. Nothing appeared disturbed, no signs of a struggle, no footprints other than their own. Daniel ran upstairs to the bedroom. The closet door was slightly ajar. A few of her clothes were missing, casual things, nothing extravagant. Her passport was gone. That made no sense. If she was leaving voluntarily, she would have taken her phone, unless someone had taken it for her. Panic bubbled in his chest. He grabbed his phone and dialed 911. His voice shook as he gave the address. She's gone. My wife. She left a note, but she's missing." Detective Laura Bennett arrived within the hour. She was sharp, with piercing eyes that seemed to search for hidden truths. She crouched beside the note, turning it over between her fingers. "No sign of forced entry," she said, standing and scanning the room. "No signs of struggle. And the note," she gestured at the folded paper, "too deliberate, too clean. Someone left it exactly where they wanted you to find it." Daniel swallowed hard. She wouldn't just leave. Not like this. Laura interrupted softly. "Tell me about last night." 10 p.m., Daniel said, glancing at the clock. "She was grading papers in the study. She seemed distracted, I guess. She mentioned being stressed about work, but that's normal sometimes, right?" Laura nodded slowly, but her eyes were sharp. Stress enough to vanish overnight? They moved through the house together. Officers collected fingerprints, took photographs, bagged the note. Laura's gaze lingered on the trash can in the bathroom. Something there caught her eye. Shredded pieces of paper, tiny fragments with jagged edges. She carefully reassembled them later. The message was chilling. "I can't keep pretending. I know what you did." Laura's pulse quickened. This wasn't a woman running away. This was a woman terrified, or someone trying to make it appear that way. By mid-morning, Daniel and Laura were in the living room, replaying neighbor footage from a small security camera across the street. At 2:13 a.m., a dark SUV had pulled up outside the house. For 14 minutes, it sat in the shadows. Then it drove away. Emily's car was still in the garage. No one saw her get in the SUV. Daniel shook. I didn't know about any SUV." Laura's eyes narrowed. Someone helped her leave, or someone staged this. Hours later, officers collected Emily's laptop from the study. That's when the first real shock came. A hidden folder labeled private. Inside were screenshots of bank transfers, large sums, moving money to offshore accounts under aliases. Over 6 months, nearly $240,000 had been moved. Daniel's face went pale. That's not mine. I didn't. I would never." "You logged in from home," Laura said. "Your credentials were used. You know about this." Daniel stammered, then froze. I don't understand." Laura kept her voice calm. And her phone, it was wiped at 2:02 a.m., 2 minutes before the SUV appeared. That was either her or someone trying to erase evidence. The detective's gaze didn't leave him. Why would she disappear without telling anyone? Why wipe her phone? Daniel opened his mouth, then shut it. Nothing. Later that afternoon, a quiet knock on the door startled them. A student from Emily's class entered timidly. "Detective, Miss Harper, she seemed scared last week. She asked me if I ever felt like someone was watching me." Laura's brow furrowed. When exactly did she say this? "About a week ago. She wouldn't tell me why, but she looked worried, really worried." Worried enough to vanish, Laura thought grimly. Then came another revelation, Emily's search history. How to disappear legally, witness protection program, signs your spouse is lying. Laura sat back. The pieces didn't fit a normal missing person case. This was deliberate, intelligent, calculated. Night fell over the Harper home, but the investigation didn't stop. Traffic cameras caught the dark SUV entering a rural highway outside the city at 3:13 a.m. It never returned. The vehicle's license plates were later traced to a shell corporation, raising questions about who had orchestrated Emily's disappearance. Detective Bennett stayed late, reviewing footage, notes, and the strange shredded message. Something about the case gnawed at her. The note, the SUV, the wiped phone. This wasn't just a disappearance. Someone wanted to manipulate the narrative. And Daniel Harper wasn't making it any easier. His composure wavered with every new discovery, his explanations barely convincing. The night deepened over the Harper home, but the investigation didn't stop. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees surrounding the quiet suburban streets. Inside, Laura stared at the note once more. "Don't look for me." A warning or a trap? She didn't know yet, but one thing was certain. This was only the beginning. The real story of Emily Harper, the truth behind her disappearance, had yet to unfold. And by dawn, no one would know whether she had left voluntarily or if someone had taken her under the cover of night. Detective Laura Bennett sat in the dimly lit office at the police precinct, staring at Emily Harper's laptop open on the desk. The hidden folder of bank transfers glowed ominously on the screen. Nearly $240,000 had been moved to offshore accounts in the past 6 months, all under different names. Each transfer was meticulously documented, screenshots neatly labeled with dates and amounts. Daniel Harper's face was pale, the lines around his eyes deepened by stress. He kept shaking his head. "I don't understand," he muttered, his voice hollow. Those weren't mine. I mean, yes, I handled our investments, but this is someone else. Maybe she..." "Maybe she what?" Laura interrupted sharply. "You're saying your wife secretly embezzled $240,000 from your accounts? Or maybe you did it and now you're acting surprised." Daniel flinched. I would never." Laura held up a hand, silencing him. "I'm just stating the facts. Her laptop tells a story. The transfers were deliberate. She saved screenshots of every transaction. And then her phone, wiped completely at 2:02 a.m. Daniel's hands trembled. She could have done it herself." "Or someone did it for her," Laura said, leaning back in her chair. Her mind was racing. If Emily had taken the money, why leave a note that said, "Don't look for me"? That sounded like fear, not planning. And if she hadn't, then someone wanted her gone, and very badly. Laura called in the tech team. They ran a forensic trace on the bank accounts. Every transaction pointed back to Daniel's login credentials. Every IP address used in the transfers originated from their home network. Daniel's composure cracked. "I didn't touch it, I swear." But the evidence was piling up, and for the first time, Laura noticed the small, subtle inconsistencies in his story. He seemed too rehearsed, too careful. "Where were you last night between 2 and 3 a.m.? asked Laura. I was asleep. I didn't hear anything," Daniel replied, voice wavering. Laura frowned. Something didn't sit right. Emily's disappearance was calculated. Someone had known the layout of the house, the times she'd be alone. She had vanished without a trace, her phone erased, no witnesses. And now Daniel's behavior was just off. While Daniel sat in stunned silence, the precinct received a call. A student of Emily Harper's, a timid 17-year-old girl, had come forward. She she seemed scared last week, the girl said softly. I didn't want to tell anyone, but she asked me if I ever felt like someone was watching her. She kept looking over her shoulder. She said she thought someone might hurt her. Laura's pen hovered over her notebook. Do you remember exactly when she said this? About a week ago, I think, maybe Tuesday. Laura's mind worked quickly. Emily had been cautious, planning, even researching ways to disappear. Her search history confirmed how to disappear legally, witness protection program, signs your spouse is lying. The pieces were starting to fit together, but the picture was still incomplete. Someone close to Emily either manipulated her or terrified her into leaving. Laura ordered a deep background check on Daniel. What she found surprised her. 3 years ago, one of Daniel's former business partners had filed a complaint of fraud against him, and then suddenly the complaint was withdrawn. The partner had moved overseas, unreachable, and no one knew why. Now Laura had to consider the possibility that Emily had discovered something Daniel didn't want exposed. By nightfall, traffic cameras outside the city revealed that the dark SUV entered a rural highway at 3:11 a.m. It never came back. Laura ran the license plate through the system. The vehicle was registered to a shell corporation, a company with no employees, no records, except a single mailing address. She leaned back in her chair and rubbed her eyes. Daniel Harper, the concerned husband, was starting to look like something else entirely. Meanwhile, Emily's neighbors reported unusual activity. One neighbor mentioned a shadowy figure outside their home late at night last week. Another said they saw a black SUV parked down the street, windows tinted, engine idling. Laura sat silently. Everything pointed to premeditation, careful, deliberate. Whoever orchestrated this disappearance knew the house, the family, the schedules. But then came the strangest part. A forensic trace on Emily's laptop revealed that she had recently visited websites related to whistleblowing, financial crimes, and safe houses. She was clearly aware of some danger. Laura pulled out the shredded note again, carefully reconstructed. I can't keep pretending. I know what you did. It wasn't a simple disappearance. It was a warning. Someone, or Emily herself, knew a terrible truth. Laura's gut told her Daniel wasn't telling the full story. He was hiding something, whether out of fear, guilt, or calculation, and Emily's disappearance was no random act. Just as she was about to leave the precinct for the night, a call came in. Immigration records showed Emily Harper's passport had been used to enter a small coastal town in Portugal. She was alive. Laura froze. Portugal? That was 2 continents away. Why leave without warning? And why would someone risk international travel with no contact? She booked the earliest flight, her mind racing. Every clue now pointed to 2 possibilities. Emily had disappeared voluntarily to protect herself, or she had been forced to disappear by someone she trusted. Before dawn, Laura reviewed the timeline again. 2:02 a.m., Emily's phone wiped. 2:13 a.m., SUV arrives. 3:11 a.m., SUV enters rural highway. 3:47 a.m., Daniel's supposed whereabouts unknown. Laura didn't know yet which version of events was true, but one thing was certain, the truth was out there, and it was more dangerous than anyone suspected. As she stared at the screen showing the offshore transactions, the surveillance footage, and Emily's reconstructed note, Laura felt a chill. Someone had orchestrated this with precision. Someone had thought 10 steps ahead. And if Emily had survived, as the passport records suggested, she had done it for a reason. Laura closed the files, grabbed her coat, and whispered under her breath, "Hang on, Emily. I'm coming. Whatever you're hiding, I'll find it." Outside, the night wind whispered across the empty streets. Somewhere in the shadows of the city, a dark SUV waited, and the game was far from over. The snow had begun to fall lightly on the winding road leading to Daniel Harper's inherited cabin. 2 hours north of the city, the forested property looked peaceful from the outside. A small creek cut through the trees, its surface glinting under the dim morning light. But inside, the cabin held secrets no one had yet imagined. Detective Laura Bennett arrived with a team of officers, all clad in tactical gear. Their boots crunched over frozen leaves as they approached the front door. Daniel Harper had reluctantly consented to a search warrant after being questioned about Emily's disappearance, claiming it was a family property he rarely used. Laura's intuition told her otherwise. The door creaked open. The cabin smelled faintly of bleach and wood smoke. Officers split up, carefully combing through each room while Laura scanned the space. Nothing appeared out of place at first glance. A small living room with a stone fireplace, a modest kitchen, cabinets neatly arranged. Dust coated the edges of the windowsill. But then Officer Patel called out from the fireplace. "Detective, you need to see this." Laura crouched beside him. Among the ashes lay fragments of cotton, recognizable as fabric from Emily's pajamas. Only part of the set was burned, the rest was missing. Laura's pulse quickened. She was here, or at least her clothes were. Upstairs, another officer found something more incriminating, a hidden basement entrance beneath a loose floorboard. The group descended carefully. The basement was small, concrete walls lined with shelving. And then Laura noticed the surveillance monitors. 4 screens flickered, each displaying different angles of the cabin and the surrounding woods. Her heart skipped. "When were these active?" she asked. Officer Patel checked the timestamps. "Most of these footage files are from last night, late, 2:30 a.m. onward." Laura's eyes widened. So someone knew exactly who came here and when. They pulled up the footage, revealing the dark SUV outside the Harper home earlier than the neighbors had noticed. A hooded figure, quick and deliberate, approached the house. The vehicle left before sunrise. Laura leaned closer. A few minutes later, another clip showed Daniel Harper entering the cabin alone at 3:47 a.m. He stayed inside for 20 minutes. When he emerged, he carried a large duffel bag. No Emily, no one else. Laura's instincts screamed that something was off. Daniel's explanations didn't line up. Why would he enter the cabin alone in the middle of the night? Why carry a duffel bag? She turned to Daniel. "Explain this." Daniel's face paled, sweat beading at his hairline. I thought she might have left something behind, important. I didn't touch her, I swear. You just what?" Laura pressed, her voice sharp. "You just needed to secure it for her safety." Laura stared at him, unconvinced. "And the ashes in the fireplace? The burned pajamas?" "I don't know. Maybe she left them there." Laura pinched the bridge of her nose. Daniel Harper was starting to look less like a concerned husband and more like a man hiding something dangerous. The team searched the rest of the cabin, not finding anything else. No body, no trace of Emily, only the monitors, the burned fabric, and Daniel's increasingly shaky alibi. Back in the city, forensic teams pieced together Emily's digital trail. Her passport was used to enter Portugal just a few days after the SUV left. She had checked into a small coastal inn, paid entirely in cash, and left no electronic trace of her movements. Laura couldn't shake the thought. Emily was alive, but why disappear? And why leave Daniel behind with evidence pointing toward him? Her phone buzzed. Officer Patel had uploaded the surveillance footage to the department's main server. Laura watched it frame by frame. The SUV appeared outside the Harper home earlier than the neighbors had noticed. A hooded figure, quick and deliberate, approached the house. The vehicle left before sunrise. Laura's heart raced. Someone helped her leave or staged her disappearance. And Daniel, he either knows or he's being played. Later that evening, Laura sat alone in the cabin's living room, the snow falling heavier outside. She studied the monitors again. Something about the angle seemed too familiar to... The coastal town in Portugal was quiet, sleepy even. Narrow cobblestone streets twisted between pastel-colored houses, the sea wind carrying the faint scent of salt and fish. Emily Harper sat in a small cafe overlooking the harbor, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee. She didn't look panicked. She didn't even glance at her phone. She had planned every step of this disappearance: the note, the shredded message, the burned pajamas, the SUV that whisked her away under the cover of night, and every step had worked perfectly. Detective Laura Bennett arrived hours later, jet-lagged but focused. She had traced Emily's passport to this town, confirmed her hotel, and booked a flight across the continent. Now, standing outside the cafe, she watched the calm woman inside. Laura approached cautiously, sliding a chair across the small table. "Emily Harper?" Emily looked up, her eyes meeting Laura's with a strange mix of relief and defiance. "You found me," she said softly, almost a whisper. Laura didn't waste words. "Why? Why disappear? You left behind a burned pajama set, shredded notes, even an SUV parked outside your own house. Your husband, Daniel, he's being investigated." Emily took a slow breath. "I knew he would panic. I knew he would do something stupid if he thought I was in danger, and I needed him to show who he really was." Laura leaned in. "Daniel Harper? You're saying he wasn't the innocent husband everyone thinks he is?" Emily nodded. "I discovered months ago. The offshore accounts, the transfers from our joint accounts, fraud, embezzlement, possibly worse. I confronted him once. He denied it, but I knew the truth, and I realized if I stayed, he could manipulate me, silence me, or worse. I had to disappear." Laura studied her carefully. "You staged the note, the shredded message, the burned pajamas, the whole cabin thing?" Emily smiled faintly, though her eyes were hard. "Every detail. The note was bait, the shredded message to make him think he was being watched. The burned pajamas, just enough to make it look like something bad had happened. And the SUV, a friend helped me get out unnoticed. He didn't suspect I would leave him so little to work with." Laura's mind raced. "And the duffel bag at the cabin? The footage shows him carrying something. What was in it?" Emily's jaw tightened. "Emergency cash. He kept hidden money in that cabin. I knew if he panicked, he'd retrieve it, and he did. That was part of the plan. I didn't need him to know I was watching from afar. He exposed himself." Laura exhaled slowly. Emily had orchestrated the entire disappearance like a master strategist. She hadn't run out of fear. She had disappeared to manipulate, to test, to expose. "Did you expect him to fall apart?" Laura asked quietly. "Yes," Emily replied quietly. "I needed the truth to come out, and it did. Under the pressure, the transfers, the offshore accounts, everything unraveled. He couldn't hide it anymore." Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Daniel Harper's carefully constructed life was collapsing. Federal investigators traced the bank transfers, interviewed former business associates, and pieced together a web of fraud and mismanagement that extended years back. Daniel was facing serious charges: financial crimes, embezzlement, wire fraud. The consequences were inevitable. Emily's careful planning had worked perfectly. Daniel's downfall was complete, but not without collateral damage. Back in Portugal, Laura asked, "And the risk to you? Weren't you worried about being found or hurt?" Emily's expression hardened. "Of course I was, every day, but I also knew staying would be more dangerous. Disappearing was the only way to control the outcome." Laura nodded, understanding the magnitude of what Emily had done. "And now, what happens next?" Emily gazed out at the harbor, the early morning sun glinting off the water. "I return home eventually, but nothing will be the same. My students, my friends, even my family, they'll never know the full story. And Daniel, he'll pay for what he did, but I'll never feel completely safe again. Some scars can't be undone." Laura leaned back. "You've been planning this for months, maybe longer. That's a lot of pressure to carry alone." Emily took a deep breath. "I wanted the truth to come out, and it did. That's all that matters." Later that day, news broke across the media. Headlines screamed, "Husband accused in multi-million-dollar fraud, wife disappeared, then reappeared abroad," and "Emily Harper outsmarts husband, forces exposure of financial crimes." Daniel's reputation crumbled. His clients, once loyal, withdrew support. His colleagues were shocked. Federal investigators had enough evidence to file serious charges. Emily's careful planning had worked perfectly. Daniel's downfall was complete, but not without collateral damage. Back in Portugal, Laura asked, "And the risk to you? Weren't you worried about being found or hurt?" Emily's expression hardened. "Of course I was, every day. But I also knew staying would be more dangerous. Disappearing was the only way to control the outcome." Laura nodded, understanding the magnitude of what Emily had done. "And now, what happens next?" Emily gazed out at the harbor, the early morning sun glinting off the water. "I return home eventually, but nothing will be the same. My students, my friends, even my family, they'll never know the full story. And Daniel, he'll pay for what he did, but I'll never feel completely safe again. Some scars can't be undone." Laura leaned back. "You've been planning this for months, maybe longer. That's a lot of pressure to carry alone." Emily took a deep breath. "I wanted the truth to come out, and it did. That's all that matters." Later that day, news broke across the media. Headlines screamed, "Husband accused in multi-million-dollar fraud, wife disappeared, then reappeared abroad," and "Emily Harper outsmarts husband, forces exposure of financial crimes." Daniel's reputation crumbled. His clients, once loyal, withdrew support. His colleagues were shocked. Federal investigators had enough evidence to file serious charges. Emily's careful planning had worked perfectly. Daniel's downfall was complete, but not without collateral damage. Back in Portugal, Laura asked, "And the risk to you? Weren't you worried about being found or hurt?" Emily's expression hardened. "Of course I was, every day. But I also knew staying would be more dangerous. Disappearing was the only way to control the outcome." Laura nodded, understanding the magnitude of what Emily had done. "And now, what happens next?" Emily gazed out at the harbor, the early morning sun glinting off the water. "I return home eventually, but nothing will be the same. My students, my friends, even my family, they'll never know the full story. And Daniel, he'll pay for what he did, but I'll never feel completely safe again. Some scars can't be undone." Laura leaned back. "You've been planning this for months, maybe longer. That's a lot of pressure to carry alone." Emily took a deep breath. "I wanted the truth to come out, and it did. That's all that matters." Later that day, news broke across the media. Headlines screamed, "Husband accused in multi-million-dollar fraud, wife disappeared, then reappeared abroad," and "Emily Harper outsmarts husband, forces exposure of financial crimes." Daniel's reputation crumbled. His clients, once loyal, withdrew support. His colleagues were shocked. Federal investigators had enough evidence to file serious charges. Emily's careful planning had worked perfectly. Daniel's downfall was complete, but not without collateral damage. Back in Portugal, Laura asked, "And the risk to you? Weren't you worried about being found or hurt?" Emily's expression hardened. "Of course I was, every day. But I also knew staying would be more dangerous. Disappearing was the only way to control the outcome." Laura nodded, understanding the magnitude of what Emily had done. "And now, what happens next?"
Emily gazed out at the harbor, the early morning sun glinting off the water. I return home eventually, but nothing will be the same. My students, my friends, even my family, they'll never know the full story. And Daniel, he'll pay for what he did, but I'll never feel completely safe again. Some scars can't be undone. Laura leaned back. You've been planning this for months, maybe longer. That's a lot of pressure to carry alone. Emily took a deep breath. I wanted the truth to come out, and it did. That's all that matters. Later that day, news broke across the media. Headlines screamed, husband accused in multi-million-dollar fraud, wife disappeared, then reappeared abroad, and Emily Harper outsmarts husband, forces exposure of financial crimes. Daniel's reputation crumbled. His clients, once loyal, withdrew support. His colleagues were shocked. Federal investigators had enough